Welcome back. And when we talk about protecting the country we love against all enemies, foreign and domestic, of course, top of the list, arguably in both categories, is, of course, the Chinese Communist Party. China has, as those of you who are regular listeners to this program well know, been pursuing what it calls unrestricted warfare against this country as it pursues something declared in May of 2019, People's War against us. And among the techniques that the Chinese have perfected is the use of multinational or supranational organizations, many of them associated with the United Nations. It has engineered essentially the takeover of these organizations by getting their own nationals in some cases or others who work with them in charge of places like, well, the World Health Organization. Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus is well established to be essentially a puppet of the Chinese Communist Party. I'm very pleased to have with us a real expert on communist China and its machinations. His name is Dr. Bradley Thayer. He is a founding member of our Committee on the Present Danger China, a very active contributor to the public policy debate about China through his essays in places like Epoch Times. He is also the author of several really important books, including How China Sees the World, which talks about Han supremacism, and also the forthcoming book, Understanding the China Threat, due out, we think, sometime this fall. He's a regular here at Securing America. We're always delighted to have a chance to catch up with him. Brad Thayer, welcome back.
Thank you, Frank. It's a great pleasure to be with you.
So, I want to talk with you a little bit about the idea of an entity that we know China's communists have been essentially running as an adjunct to their various unrestricted warfare operations, notably the use of a virus that they created as essentially an instrument of biological warfare and affecting how people responded to it, specifically by adopting what's been called the China model. Um, there's a move afoot, as you know, Brad, unbelievably initiated by the Biden administration to actually give this fellow Dr. Tedros more power, including inside our own country at the expense of our sovereignty, to direct how we're going to deal with future public health emergencies of international concern. Tell us what you make of this as a Chinese op, for one thing, but also in terms of the advisability of it.
Absolutely, Frank. Extremely important issue for all Americans and for all allies of the United States and those people around the world who depend upon America for their security and their hopes and aspirations for a free life. What we're seeing here, of course, is the export of the China model. It's the export of a totalitarian form of government using advanced technology, using information technology, but also institutions. So, what we're seeing with Tedros, of course, and it's important for the audience to recall that Tedros lied to the international community. He repeated the lies that the Chinese communists advanced concerning the transmissibility of COVID-19, and that generated tremendous damage around the world. When, of course, as the virus began to spread, it might have been better contained if we'd had the truth from the World Health Organization, but the truth was
For
suppressed
sure.
and lies were advanced.
Mhm.
So the
And
most
again,
recent
they were the Chinese Communist Party's lies primarily, weren't they?
indeed, which he echoed and
Mhm.
reinforced with the authority of the World Health Organization. So we must look at this
Right.
organization as a suspect one, completely compromised by the Chinese Communist Party. That's a sad situation because WHO has done great work. It's a terrible situation, but it's not alone. So the
Mhm.
Biden administration's most recent plan, of course, is a Pandora's box of bad ideas. in terms of allowing the World Health Organization to have greater control over how the world, how the United States responds to future pandemics. Inevitably, there'll be future pandemics. But of course, this is the camel's nose under the tent, as these efforts will be employed by World Health Organization to implement greater control over America's personal lives, and erosion of freedom in the United
Yeah,
States.
and they're
So
really not making much of a secret of this. This is a world government build out, it seems. And again, it would be bad enough if it were just the global resetters who were going to engineer this to their benefit and to our detriment, specifically the detriment of our sovereignty and our ability to decide for ourselves through accountable individuals and agencies how we're going to cope with what are described as public health emergencies. And under this administration, that could be everything from gun control to climate change, to say nothing of actual diseases of various kinds. So this is very problematic, and I very much appreciate your thoughts on this as an expert on the use that the Chinese would make of it, as we've seen in sort of a dress rehearsal with Pandemic 1.0. Very quickly, Matt, Brad, we've got less than a minute. Speaking of public health, I gather Xi Jinping, the dictator of China, may not be in the best of health. What do you make of that report?
indeed, he may not. It's notable that he hasn't left China for a considerable amount of time, but he also hasn't made, more recently, he hasn't made public appearances. So there are rumors that he's seriously ill.
Mhm.
Of course, it's important to take that with a grain of salt. There are many, as Twain said, of course, the rumors of his death were greatly exaggerated.
Yes.
Um, so we can certainly should anticipate perhaps that he'll surface again. But there's enough of this coalescing around a serious health problem for him, which generates, of course, quite concern for Taiwan,
Mhm.
for the United States, our security posture around the world, as we anticipate what a post Xi China
Might
would
look like.
be and whether
Yeah.
there'll be a power struggle.
We'll explore that on the other side of a very short break. More with Dr. Bradley Thayer, one of our duty experts on the Chinese Communist Party and Han supremacism, what it means for us. Right after this.